Good day. Welcome to cargo operation or cargo handling. The topic for the day is containerization. Containerization has been around for the past almost 60 years now, 58 to 60 years now. And we can never talk about containerization without giving credit to Mr. Malcolm P. McLean. He started this idea of containerization, but before then, around 1792, there used to be this truck driver who was always, I'll say, doing very well in all his operation. This truck driver was doing perfectly well, but before that, that is around 1792, in the England and some part of the world, they were transporting few cargo in small boxes by the use of the railway and also the horse. They will put this box of cargo on a horse, and the horse will be transporting them. And this idea was made well known in the World War II by the US. They transported most of their cargo using boxes to transport them. And based on that, this McLean, who was somewhere staying around 1955, staying in US, North Carolina, he had an idea that, okay, if this thing is working and it worked perfectly in World War II for US, why not pack? He was really a truck driver and a businessman he was a truck driver who graduated to become a businessman, and through that he owned a lot of trucks. And because he was able to own a lot of trucks, his duty was to transport the individual cargo like bags of rice, the railway line, the books, the shoes and clothing in bales and other things. He will carry them from the warehouse to the shipyard or the ports, and then they will load it. But when they are carrying them, it takes a lot of time for these people to load it onto the truck. And when he drive it to the port too, it takes a lot of time also for them to discharge it into the ship. And when cargo arrives at the ports, the people inside the ship will have to take a lot of time. Those days there were nothing like cranes and other things, so the people will carry it on their head, move it individually from the ship onto the truck before the truck can get to the warehouse. And this was really stressing him a lot, because most of it was spending more time. So he thought of another idea of, okay, loading the truck with the consignment, then he will carry it with a ship crane into the ship. Then when it gets to the destination, they will offload the truck together with the consignment into the warehouse. Then they will drive the next consignment onto put the next consignment on the truck. Then the truck driver will drive it to the port. Then they will use the crane to carry it inside the ship. That was his initial idea. But he realized that it was a little bit cumbersome. So he thought of another idea of making a box and packing all the containers in, so that it will be at the warehouse. When they go, they will find a way of you carrying it using a forklift to carry it on the truck. Then when the truck gets to the port will also use a crane to carry it into the ship. So those were the few ideas he had, and he started it, and it was working perfectly and efficiently. And because it was working perfectly and efficiently, the shipping companies also decided to restructure their ship design to meet those boxes. And that is when containerization started. And it has grew rapidly over these years, and it has gotten to the stage in which we are now. Let's go to the main thing. There are 4 main operational systems in a container terminal operation. There are 4 main operational systems. the ship operation. The ship operation is whereby you give the container to the ship, and the ship crew will have to manage the container whilst it is at sea. So for instance, if you loaded the ship, you will be using Singapore and Tema as practical scenario. You loaded the containers on a ship in Singapore, and it passed through all the regions that it need to go through, coming all the way to Sri Lanka, to the high seas, South Africa. It came all the way to Tema port. That is the ship operation. When it gets to the Tema port, we have what a dedicated berth for containers, that is MPS terminal. They work specifically on containers. So the MPS side is going to be a key transfer operation. They need to transfer the containers you put in Singapore on the ship, transfer it from the ship onto their yard. So they will use the gantry cranes, the big cranes you see over there. They will use those gantry cranes to move the containers onto their trucks and keep them in their yard for storage, for shorter storage, because they need to offload it, load the next consignment onto the ship so that the ship can leave. And after the ship has left, they will take their time to separate the containers. The one going to Max Line, the one going to PIL, the one going to so and so. They will separate all of them and call them to come and take their containers away. So that is the second stage. That is the key transfer operation. And then once MPS finish sorting them out, but before that, MPS terminal has a design. They have made some markings on the floor that they keep the containers, and they have coded those markings so that when a truck driver, they are almost about, if there is, let's say, about 3 ships on the jetty that is removing and loading containers, how do you know that ship A container should be kept here, ship B container should be kept here? That is why they have marked the floor or the ground, so you can research. That's the key markings import, or container markings import. Use the code container markings import, and you see the pictures over there. Once they move the container into the specific locations, after they have sorted it out, they will move the container from the MPS terminal to the Golden Jubilee terminal. And Golden Jubilee terminal is considered to be the container yard operation. That is where they can also officially do inspection, the custom inspection, checking the opening the container and checking with the packing list and checking with the bill of lading to see whether they have paid all the dues and everything. So once they finish the inspection, they close it and deliver the container to the specific warehouse or the owner. So there are 4 different categories: the ship, the key transfer, the container yard, and the delivery or the reception operation. In every country, that is how the operation goes. From the ship, it goes to the key. From the key, it goes to the storage area. And from the storage area, it goes to the owner. And that has been the process. Now, let's see. For easy loading and discharging, all containers are loaded and discharged with a gantry crane. And these gantry cranes are mounted on rails, like railway lines. They are mounted on it, and they go forward and aft, and they can swing and just discharge the cargo in that manner. We are praying that they will leave the band. Once they leave the band, we will go physically to go and check the containers. I want you to be following the cursor from this stage on. On the storage of the container, like I said, when you go to the key side on the ship, they have numbers, 3 coding numbers that they normally use on the ship to know the exact location of a particular container, so that when they want container from this side, you will not go and bring a different container. Or when you want to discharge a container at Tema Port, you will not really discharge a different container. And that is basically what we are trying to do or say. So for the meantime, we will just go through the basic concept of containerization, and I'll show you the storage, how we read the storage on the ship, the container position on the ship, how we read it on the jetty, and those are the things we will talk about later on. Let's go to the types of container. We have what you call the flat rack containers. And the reason why we need to know the types of container is that, like I said, it is the responsibility of the shipping company agents to advise the cargo owner which type of container the person is supposed to use. And if you go or you start working and you are being put in charge as the container selecting agent, and you don't select the right container for the right cargo, once the cargo get damaged, you will be fired. So you need to select the right container for the right cargo and defend it to your bosses why you are selecting this container, this type of container, not that type of container. So this is a typical flat rack. For instance, if you are loading a heavy railway engine, or if you are loading a caterpillar, whereby the way it has been designed, it will not fit into this box, then you have to use a flat rack container. And for the flat rack, look at the cursor. This section and this section, when there is no cargo and you are transporting them, you can fold them in for easy transportation. And this is a typical box or closed box container. Closed box container. Some of the closed box containers are having ventilators, and normally you can see from this side where the cursor is, that is where the ventilators are located. Some are here, some are here, and I will give you a typical description later on. Some of the ventilators are here, some are at the back and the left and the right side of the container. And how do you determine the left and the right side of the container? Unless you know the front side of a container. And for containers, where we open or where the doors are, this side is not the front side, it is the back side of the container. Put that in mind. This side is the back side of the container. The front side of the container is where we don't have anything over there. That is the front side of the container. And this side is the back side of the container. So if this is the front side of the container, then this is the right side, the right side of the container. And this section that's behind here is the left side of the container. So if you are standing in the front, this is the right, this is the left, and this is the back. You need to know all this, because when you are doing inspection on the container and one part is damaged, you need to write it on the document, the bill of lading, that the left side of the container was damaged at the time of receiving it, so that upon receiving it at the next port, they know that it wasn't your fault that the container was damaged, but it was damaged by from the start point, not from the ship. Let's go to the next one. This is a typical open top container. And this type of container, like I said, depending on whatever you are loading, then the whole top is open. Then you can load the container from the top. Sorry, you can load the cargo from the top of the container. This whole top side can be open to make it empty. So if whatever you are going to put inside the container, depending on the design, it cannot go through this entrance here, then you have to put the container from the top, the cargo from the top, and put it inside the container. I repeat, if what you are going to load will not go through the front of this side, then you can load it from the top. And once you finish, you close this door, then you secure the container, then you put a tarpaulin or something to cover it so that rain does not destroy the cargo. And this is open side container. The same way, depending on the size or the nature of the cargo. And normally when we are loading cargo with that, we can easily use forklift to put them in. We prefer to select open side container. So once you open the side, then the forklift can easily load the individual cargo in, secure them. The man, they have loaded the cargo and he's securing them. After that, then they will close this side here. That is why it's called open side container. And this is a bulk container. There is liquid bulk container and there's dry bulk container. This is a typical dry bulk container, so that you can put rice, wheat, maize, cocoa bean on anything in. Once you get to the destination port, look at the Ccargo, then you can discharge it directly and bag it. For instance, you are a rice producer, but your rice is not too much for you to hire an entire ship to put the cargo inside. Then you can put them in some of these containers and transport them from one place to another place. If you are having cow, you are having some animals that you need to feed them. So if you are transporting their food, there is no need for you to bag them, go and unbag them, but you can put them in smaller containers like this in full. Then when you get to the destination, you can bring them out and put it at your silo or your storage area. So that is also another type. And this is called a tank container. Tank container, you can see it's like a container they have built a tank inside. And another name for a tank container is called tanktainment. Tanktainment. So when you hear of tanktainment, it is the same as tank container. Tank containers are made strong and rigid in such a way that most of the times we put chemicals inside. And chemicals like acid, chlorine, sodium, chloride, magnesium, or like chemicals they normally use in the industry. That is what we normally put inside the container. So when you have such thing and they even fall on the ground, because of this, look at the Ccargo, because of this structure, it is not likely to damage the tank, the round thing inside, but only this side will be affected. Then the content inside will continue to be secure and safe. So when it comes to the port, this is where we connect the pipes to discharge them. So this is a typical tank container or tanktainment. And this is a half height container. A half height container. The height is half, and I want you to understand and know that because the height is half, depending on the cargo you are loading, then you can put the cargo inside and use tarpaulin to cover it and load it on the ship. This ends here. This is where we put the locking mechanism called twist lock. We put the twist lock here, and the gantry crane will also have a point, a knob that they will secure 1, 2, 3, and 4. They will secure it inside. The gantry cranes will secure it inside. Then they will use it to lift, and that's to lift them for loading and discharging. So this side is a very important thing here. And when we start, I want you to go and find out the name of this section where I'm putting the Ccargo. I want you to find out. Okay, that's where part of the container. And all containers, like I said, have a container number. All containers have container number. And over here, I want us to go back to check how the container numbers are. Container numbers can be positioned here at the front, and at the left here, at the top and inside. Inside, because when you are locked inside the container and you have a means of communicating to the outside, maybe I have my mobile phone. I want to tell my friend that I have been locked inside this container. There might be hundreds of containers around, but how will he know that this is the container I have been stuck inside? So I will give him the container number, because the container number is written inside. I will give him the container number. Then he will come straight to that particular container, open to free me or open to get the access in. So container numbers are inside, the back, the front, the side, and then the top. The top is for the gantry crane operator. He is on top above the container, so he will see the container number from the top, and he will know that this container number is going to this position on the ship or on the jetty. And that is how. And both sides is also used for the forklift or the drivers, the rig stackers. Those who carry those trucks are called the rig stackers. Is for them to also see the container number and where they are going. So basically that is for the containers. Let's talk about the few precautions that we have in the container operation. Consider yourself to be a container selecting agent. Container which from external inspection is considered structurally unsafe must be rejected. If you do, before you use the container for shipment, you need to do internal and external physical check. If part of the container is damaged, is punctured hole or anything that you think when it is raining, water can get access inside the container, you need to reject it and you don't use it for any transport, because when the cargo get damaged, they will take it from your end, from your company. Avoid large units which, if stored outward ship, will result in an overhang of the ship side. If you are putting a cargo inside the container and it is going outside of that container, try to avoid it and let them give it to a general cargo ship. If you do that, it is sometimes, we normally call it OOG, that's overstored container. What it means is that the container has a specific dimension, whether flat rack or whatever it is. But if, for instance, you load a container and the top, it has protruded above, let's say use open top, and the cargo you have loaded has protruded above the very top. If you do that, it means another container cannot sit on it. And because another container cannot sit on it, you'll be charged extra for the top that no container can sit on it. If it has protruded on the sideways, you'll be charged extra for extending to the other side, because they cannot load any container on the side not to damage your cargo. So it's just, excuse my language, just like a fat woman sitting in an airplane. The airplane seats are all numbered and they are given to one person at a time. So if you think your buttocks is too fat, then you will be forced to buy 2 seats, because you cannot squeeze anybody. And that has been the system in container shipping. Containers stored on deck should be one high only. In such cases, the containers should be stored in forward and aft direction. What they are trying to say is that if the containers stored on deck are not on only one, then, and there are 2 or 3 or 4, then you need to take extra precautions to secure them very well. Okay, so let's get straight to, so all these ones are talking about the container securing arrangement. What are some of the things we use to secure the container? We have what you call rod and wire lashing. We have bridging piece. We have cellular vessel container are put down through cell guide. Inside the container, the cargo hold. Inside the cargo hold, there is something like a bar inside the cargo hold that guide the crane operators during loading and discharging, and that bar is called cell guide. Cell guide. It also prevents the container from shifting from one end to the other during transiting voyage at sea. Okay, so those are some of the few arrangements that we have. I will personally give you the, okay, let's come here. This is a typical container plan, the plan, and I will give you how it is being read. We will have to read them in 3-dimensional form. When you are putting them in height, the height section is called tier. Look at the cursor. The height section is called tier, and then the length section is called bay. The breadth section is called row. So the length section of the container is called bay. The breadth is called row. Then the height is called tier. I'm going to use your class for example. If you have a classroom block, a class that can a particular classroom, or let's use your church room. Your church room, the chairs are arranged in length and in breadth, and there can be about 100 people in church room. But because of how they are arranged, if you want to select number 50, sometimes you need to count the chairs before you are able to get number 50. But for the container vessel, this is how they do it. Consider the longest section. The longest section, because the chairs are arranged in that order, let me try to see if, yes, I have explained the bay, the tier, and the row over here for you. And I want us to come here. Yes. Look at the diagram here, which is very important to me. Look at the diagram. If you want to point a particular container, let's say this green container where the Ccargo is, how do you tell somebody ashore or a gantry crane operator that he should remove this container? We normally give them a code, and then the code or the numbering system we give them are supposed to be 6, like 6 different figures. So I want you to take a pen and a paper and write. These are some of the code, the coding system. So normally we start from the bay, the row, and then the tier. I repeat, we start from the bay, the row, and then the tier. And I will try to give you a typical example over here to see. Pointer, let me see. 0, okay. Okay, just I'm trying to work something here. So let's consider that we have a number like 02, 07, and maybe 82. Okay, this is how the container numbering or the container storage code are being done. These first two numbers here, this first two, 02, I'm just giving a rough idea. This first one is for the bay. The next two figures are for the row, and this one is for the tier. This one is for the lengthwise. This one is for the breadth, and this one is for the height. And for the height, it is called tier. Let me give you an example. Now, the down one is, all the down one is tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5, tier 6, and tier 7. So the height, how many heights? We have 7 heights, 7 high. And the 7 high, the 7th one is the 7th tier. The 6th one is the 6th tier. And it goes on and on and on. And if you want to know about the row we have the first row, the second row, third row. So first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. You understand? Those are the row. And if you want to talk about the bay, the breadthwise, so this is, let's say, B1, B2, B3, B4, like it goes on. But I will later explain it into details for you. So these are the bay, these blocks, you see, they are the bay. So if, for instance, we want bay 207, this is bay 2. If, for let's say, this is bay 207, then we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the roll is 7. And then the height, anything from on deck, anything on deck is, it starts from 80 and above. And anything below deck is start from 0 to 79. So when you see the tier, the last two digits starting from 80, it means the container is on deck. Container is on deck. So this one, 82, means the first one on deck. So I know the row, I know this row. This 02 is supposed to be this. And I know 07, row 07 is supposed to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then the tier 2, which means on this row, the last one down is the container they are talking about. So this is just a brief idea about it, but I want you to understand it briefly so that when you try to go to the field and they are talking about the bay, the tier, and the row, you don't get confused or you don't presume like you've done containers but you've not heard it before. So another example is also here. You see, how do I know or tell the this is a typical gantry crane? This is how the gantry crane are. So you can see if there is no container number on top, the container number on top, how would the crane driver know that he has to remove this particular container? If there are no container number on top, the other way by which he can use is to use the storage location, the storage position to determine it. And this is what we are talking about. So this is one bay, this is another bay, this is another bay, another bay, another bay. Here there is another bay but it's empty. This is another bay, or this another bay, this side another bay. Look at the case, another bay. This is another bay, and all these are bay. And then the rows are this: one row here, 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 one. And you see, so let's count the rows: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I hope you understand the rules. And then the bay are, all this side is 1B, all this section is 1B, all this section is 1B. The tier are the height. So if we come from the down, 1, 2, 3, 4, this is about 4 tier. So this is basically what they do in the container operation. Why, when we use containers, what are some of the advantages and disadvantages of using containers over the brick bulk cargo? These are the advantages: reduce ship time in ports, reduce tally cost. Instead of counting, maybe you receive 100 pieces of rice, instead of counting them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up to 100, all the 100 has been put in the container and has been closed. So once they tell you it is 100 in the container and the container is not open, it means it is 100 in that container. And that is what we are trying to do over here. Okay, so basically just look at the sign here. This is also one. Reduce tallying cost, reduce time between producer and consumer. So if I produce cocoa bean and I want to ship it to Thailand, once they bring me a container and I pack all the cocoa bean in a bag inside, I close it and straight away it comes to my port for shipment. But if I have to carry the cocoa bean in a truck, it gets to the ports, they have to load it in the truck, it wastes a lot of time. So it's a good advantage. Improve transshipment and intermodal. If you are moving a container from Ghana to Abidjan, which is a landlocked country, it is easy to do that. But if you put them in an articulated truck, it takes a lot of time during loading and discharging. And those are some of the things we are talking about. Good security and less privilege. What they are trying, once you load your cargo in a container, let's say iPhone or laptop or Samsung, whatever it is, you load them in a container and you close and lock the container. There is no way somebody on a ship will steal. There is no way somebody in port will steal, unless they open the container before they will be able to steal. But if it is raw in a ship, somebody can put some in the pocket and go away without you seeing the person. And protection against weather. Once it's in the container, when it's raining, the sun is shining, when it's snowing, I bet you are not going to have any problem. And better berth utilization. Container vessels uses their berth very well. Very well, because it's faster and quicker. And that is what we are trying to say over here. Let's get to the disadvantages. High initial cost, because before this high initial cost, before you can operate a container terminal, you need a gantry crane, which costs very high. You need a lot of things in place before you can operate a container terminal. But for brick bulk cargo, once your port is there, you can start running it. A lot of stress on the crew. When you are operating a container vessel, there is a lot of stress, a lot of checking on the ship crew, a lot. Employment, high unemployment rate in the ports, because if people are supposed to carry the cargo on their head and be moving, they are going to get more job. But if you are putting all in a container and transporting them one after the other, I bet you they are not going to get any work to do. We have due to bad cargo damage, normally during the loading and discharging, there's a lot of damage to the ship. a lot of damage. Stowaway, likely to carry stowaway, because when you have empty containers waiting at the port to be sent to their destination, people can go and hide inside the container, lock themselves, and you have no idea. You carry it on a ship and transport it to the destination, sometimes knowing or unknowing that there are people inside the container, because you don't have much time to go and open each container. Windage area. Container ships increases their windage area, which I have explained that to you. You see the height when you load the containers on deck, and there's strong wind. There's a great surface for the wind to blow, and if you are not careful, it affects the ship speed very well. Accident, high fatal accident involving containers. Normally, containers have been dropping on people at the ports. Maybe the gantry crane will break and the container will drop all the way from the top and it will hit on people. A lot of accident happens in a container yard. So try your best to make sure you follow simple instructions so that you don't get injured at the container yard. And that is it for today, and I want you to come with your comments and your ideas. Thank you very much.